Back in Destiny 1, we were treated to a bunch of concept art every time we downloaded updates and hotfixes. At least on Xbox, that's what I played on. One of those was a swampy city that players everywhere wanted to explore. Old Chicago took the player base by storm and has been desired by the Destiny community ever since. But we never got Old Chicago, and the mentions of it in lore are far and few between. In fact, to this day, Old Chicago has only been mentioned in lore 5 times. The first time on Graviton Lance Pulse Rifle in Red War, and once during Season of the Hunt, twice in Season of the Chosen, and finally the Icebreaker Sniper Rifle when it came back in Destiny 2 with Vesper's Host. Which is crazy when Old Chicago was supposed to be a destination in Destiny 1. A year before Destiny 1 would release, IGN put out an article interviewing then art director Chris Barrett. In the article, they talk about Destiny, their vision for players, and more. Towards the bottom, he talks about future locations. Bungie art director Christopher Barrett dubbed Destiny a mythic science fiction universe and shared a number of locales we can look forward to visiting. The Cosmodrome Beach, the ruins on the edge of the European Dead Zone, the swamps of Old Chicago, derelict fleets floating in the rings of Saturn, the Earth-Moon's Helmuth, the uncharted depths of Reef, giant obsidian pyramid ships, mile-long tomb ships, and much more. So far, every single one of those locations he mentions has been delivered into Destiny Universe either in Destiny 1 or 2, except Old Chicago. To this day, we have only ever been to 3 different countries located on Earth. We've been all over the solar system but have seen very little of our own planet. We all know the Cosmodrome is in Russia, the EDZ is in Germany as we can tell by the language on the buildings, and the last city in Twilight Gap are in Chile. The mountains that we see around the tower are the Andes. That's it. That's what we know of Earth unless we read lore. I know some people are going to argue about the last city's location. They're going to say, no, it's in Europe, Sticky. It's not in Chile. It's not in South America. But it was confirmed in Season of the Seraph when we went on a space station and could see where it was. And this is also backed up a lot in lore, including Amanda Holliday's lore. And for those that are going to say, well, how did we fall out of Gull's ship and walk to the farm in Red War? We didn't. You're misremembering what happened. We fell, and then we walked, and we were picked up by Hawthorne in a jump ship, and then we went to the farm. We flew there. It is also supported by both Amanda Holliday and Hawthorne referring to the last city as across the pond, which is a way of saying across the Atlantic Ocean. And while there are many Earth locations talked about in lore, I think Bungie needs to do a better job of showing us more in-game. Even if it's a Gambit or Crucible map, a strike, a dungeon, exotic mission. We don't need fully fleshed out patrol zones everywhere, but a one-off activity would help flesh out the world in-game. I bet most people don't know that the largest location of Golden Age information is in Africa. It would be a lot of fun fighting our way through this old library and museum of Golden Age information and technology, seeing experimental tech that the Fallen or Cabal are trying to get their hands on, where we are rewarded with a Golden Age exotic weapon. But who knows? I'm just a player with thousands of hours in this game. I'm not a Bungie CEO. What exactly do we know of Old Chicago currently? Like I said, not much. It's been swallowed up by a swamp. There's some unknown creatures there that are specifically hunting guardians. The gun manufacturer Hake has an Earth-based office there. And there were tons of experiments with black holes and gravity. That's really about it. And if you want to read the lore on Old Chicago, you can find it on the exotic Graviton Lance, exotic Icebreaker, the chest armor from Season of the Hunt, and the Trials legs for both Warlock and Hunter from Season of the Chosen. Warlock and Hunter have different lore pages. A lot of people think that it was a hive or Taken that attacked the Guardians in Old Chicago and that it was just an unknown creature at that time, similar to how it was most likely a hive that attacked the people in the Black Armory lore. But that can't be any of them because Shayura says she has studied every enemy of the light and she has no idea what it was. And as the Dread did not exist yet because they started existing after Lightfall between Final Shape, it is safe to assume We have never seen what this creature is in game yet. We do know more now thanks to the Edge of Fate trailers. That train we see busting through like the Kool-Aid Man, yeah, that's a Chicago train from the 1960s and 1970s. I couldn't find anything about when the Ravenswood trains were decommissioned, but I know they were around till at least 1977. That train is not our only connection to Chicago with this new DLC. We see Chicago in the gameplay trailer.
Observe, connect, conceal.
Guardian, I had a vision.
Conform, comply, return.
They just wanted to show us disasters.
Observe, connect, conceal.
I'm not human anymore.
Return, conform, comply.
No one else should know what this feels like.
Terminate your suspicion, Commander. Remove your scornful blindfold. Observe, connect, conceal, conform, comply, return. Observe, connect, conceal, conform, comply, connect, return.
Towards the end, we see Lodi getting abducted in the middle of a broken Chicago. That large building that's broken and hanging over, yeah, that's the Sears Tower. I guess it's called the Willis Tower now, but it'll always be the Sears Tower to me. It's the exact same shape and size. Lodi is most likely from Chicago during an unknown time period. We see the Witnesses fleet attacking Chicago. The interesting part about all of this is that the train has to come from a different time period than Lodi himself. Maybe, but we'll get to that. If the train is from the late 1970s, the collapse happened hundreds of years later. The Traveler was discovered in the mid-21st century and early Golden Age started 50 years later. So at the minimum, Golden Age started around the year 2100, which means that those trains were not in use for over 130 years. There's also the option that what we are seeing in the trailer didn't actually happen to him, that it wasn't the Witness that abducted Lodi, but the Nine, which I think is more likely. He mentions in the gameplay trailer they wanted to show us disasters. I think there's a high probability that Lodi was taken from Chicago long before this discovery of the Traveler, and he was being shown the collapse by the Nine. The Nine are known to show visions and even show how events in the future will unfold. I know some newer players may not know this, but the entire Prophecy dungeon was the Nine showing us what we would need to do in Beyond Light. That dungeon dropped in game a few months before Beyond Light released during Season of Arrivals. The whole dungeon is us getting used to the idea that we can't just use light to defeat the darkness, we must also use the darkness. Then in Beyond Light, we start using our first darkness subclass, Stasis. The final boss of the dungeon, Kel Echo, is supposed to be a prophecy of Aramis. It's not far-fetched to think the Nine scooped up some Timu, Gordon Freeman, and experimented on him. He does say in the trailer, he's no longer human. What that means? No idea. Could be a lot of things. But the Emissary is no longer human, and neither is Xur. Both are results of experimentation by the Nine. If Xur is to be believed, they chose to be experimented on, and there are others like them. Is Lodi one of those Jovians that Xur spoke of? No idea yet. Are we getting Chicago as an in-game location? I don't know, but it is mentioned in the Edge of Fate teaser along with Kepler, and we know Kepler is a location we will be going to. And yes, I know this says Shiga, which isn't even a word, but Bungie did make a point to change the word to Chicago later on in future releases of the trailer and the gameplay Edge of Fate trailer. So it is interesting that Chicago is mentioned right under Kepler. Knowing Bungie and knowing that Bungie has said this DLC will be around the same size as Rise of Iron, I highly doubt we will be getting 2 full patrol zones. The only DLCs we ever got 2 patrol zones in the entire history of Destiny was Forsaken, with Dreaming City and Tangled Shore, and you may also be able to count Shadowkeep. We got the moon, then a couple months later we got the Cosmodrome. So if history is telling us anything, it is that we do not need to hold out any hope for both Kepler and Chicago as patrol spaces. That does not mean that we will not get Chicago as an in-game location in some capacity. We did have a mission on Mars and Witch Queen, even though they did not give us a full patrol space. Maybe we have a one-off mission that takes us through Chicago. There's also the possibility we have to do an exotic quest that will take us to Chicago, as I believe one of the new exotic weapons we were shown to be a Hake. And since Hake has a weapons facility in Old Chicago, it wouldn't be that far from the possibilities. Other possibilities is that Lodi is the creature that was hunting Guardians but was only trying to give them hugs. He does seem like a hugger. Let's be honest, Lodi would totally give people hugs. He's probably a side hug type of guy. We do know that Shariah is kind of insane, so her account of what happened might be kind of off. And before you defend her and say she had a mental break and it's not her fault if you've read her lore, seen videos on her, if I had a mental break and started murdering innocent people and torturing them, I doubt you'd say I should just go free. It's okay. It's okay. Sticky was just having a rough time. It's okay that he murdered like 30 children. Like, none of you would all say that. I'll be honest, I kind of think it's kind of stupid that they let her out of jail in their mental hospital and gave her a redemption arc lore. I don't think Lodi being the monster is very likely, but it is a fun idea. I know some of you guys desperately need hugs. Maybe you would complain a little bit less on Reddit. There's a lot we still don't know, but I doubt they'd have multiple references in the DLC to Old Chicago, knowing full well how much the community wants to see the destroyed city and not have at least one in-game location for it. That would be like having a bunch of Siva ornaments for exotics, but never bringing Siva back. Bungie would never do that. Never. Thank you all for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and comment. And most of all, remember, hunters never die.